So y'all know that parental advisory sticker that's on like almost every album to the point where you don't even see it anymore? Well, fun fact, the first musicians to ever have to use this sticker was a group by the name of 2 Live Crew. And you're about to find out why. But first we gotta go back a little bit. You see, the RIAA, the people who give out like the plaques and stuff, had a problem. There was this group called the Parents Music Resource Center, which we're now gonna call PMRC, remember that? They said, you know what? We don't like some of the music that's coming out. They said it's influencing their kids in a bad way. So they looked over to the RIAA. Because something I forgot to mention is they don't only give out plaques. The RIAA stands for Recording Industry America Association, something like that. They basically represent the music recording industry. They said, what you want us to do? The PMRC, the parents said, first of all, we want you to watch your tone. Second of all, we want you to come to court. And what the PMRC basically wanted was a rating system for music, kind of like they do for movies, like rated R, rated M for mature, and all that. And it started because of Prince. One of the parents bought her kid a Prince album. They was listening to Prince, and Prince started talking about doing stuff to yourself. The parents said, we want to know what's on the albums before we buy them for the kids. And okay, that's kind of fair. And that's what a judge thought. He said, all right, that's cool. But who is going to decide what the rating should be? Because Prince had that on like one song. You want us to rate the whole album as M for mature, T for teen? What you want us to do? Musicians in the RIAA came out and said, tell them, judge. The judge said, all right, slow your roll, slow your roll. But seriously though, what if the parents advise the kids on whether they should listen or not? We'll call it parental advisory. The RIAA said, well, that sounds fair. The PMRC said, no, we want the rating system. The judge said, no, we're going to do it my way. Final. Here's where things start to get wicked. See, the PMRC started looking at groups like NWA, started looking at artists like Ice-T, all who have something in common, all who made rap music. The PMRC said, look, you got to put that parental advisory on that stuff. The RIA said, that's just how they talk. You trying to censor how they talk. Black people said, now hold on now. RIA said, hold on back. We trying to help you. You trying to censor them? But suddenly, while this conversation was going on, a bombshell drops. A group by the name of the 2 Live Crew was blowing up in the South with their album As Nasty As They Wanna Be. And boy, I can't show you this whole album. The Parents Association said, they said, what songs they got up in there? The 2 Live Crew slid up. They said, we can answer that for you. Our hit single's called Me So Horn. So you know that song? That's us. We also got a song called Throw That D. I bet you can guess what D means. We also got a song called Hey, We Want Some. If you don't know the rest of the lyrics, look in the comments. They're going to answer that for you. But yeah, that's what we got. So we need that little sticker y'all was talking about. The Parents Association said they can't play that music. The RIA said, so what you gonna do, ban them? A Florida judge said, yup. A Florida judge ruled it as obscene material and made it illegal to sell to the youth. Parental advisory, grandparental advisory, don't matter. You sell the tape, you get arrested. People sold the tape, people got arrested. But you know what happens when you tell people they can't have something? The album starts to blow. Meanwhile, the whole time 2 Live Crew is in court against Florida saying, yo, freedom of speech. They released another album while they were in the whole legal proceedings against Florida. But this time, they had to put the parental advisory sticker, the first album to do so. See, again, first album was labeled obscene material. They're battling this. But while they're battling that first album, Florida would look kind of crazy if they said, we want to ban both of them. The Supreme Court would probably be like, okay, y'all doing too much. So the middle ground was basically put the parental advisory sticker on that album. And fun fact, the first song off this album was a remix of Born in the USA by one of the most top-selling famous musicians of all time, Bruce Springsteen. He allowed them to do that, which shows you the divide against musicians and parental associations at that time. They were shocked that he let them do this. He's the poster boy for all that. They said, and I quote, 2 Live Crew and Bruce Springsteen can go to hell together. But anyway, at the end of the day, 2 Live Crew won their battle and their first album was not considered obscene anymore. It was just music. And to keep everyone happy, the RIA said, okay, if it has a curse word or whatever in it, just put the sticker on there.
I can't tell if my grandfather's a genius or if I'm just dumb. He sat me down one day and he said, Artie, do you understand the geography of a woman? And I said, what? He said between the ages of 18 and 22, a woman is like Africa, half discovered, half wild, fertile, and naturally beautiful. Between 23 and 30, a woman is like Europe, well-developed and open to trade, especially for something that's valuable. Between the ages of 31 and 35, a woman is like Spain, very hot and convinced of her own beauty. Between 36 and 40, a woman is like Greece, slightly aging, but still a desirable place to visit. Between the ages of 41 and 50, a woman is like Great Britain, with a glorious past. Between the ages of 51 and 60, a woman is like Kosovo. She's been through war and she doesn't make the same mistake twice. Between the ages of 61 and 70, a woman is like Canada, self-preserving, but still willing to meet new people. Then he said the geography of a man is very simple, and I said, what is it? Between the ages of 1 and 100, a man is like North Korea and Russia, ruled by a pair of nuts.
Stop it. Funny thing about rags is that so I do them up and he undoes them. So he undoes them in seconds and it really annoys me. It's like a child who won't do his shoelaces up. So he just undoes them. He can also take the anklets off, so he can take everything off in seconds if he chooses to, but he chooses not to. He knows what we're doing. He's very, very aware. He's very intelligent. This means he's a bit flustered, but it normally means he wants to go home. He's saying, I want to go home and take these off and go and relax at home. Come on, up. It does get irritating. Come on. Right, could you just stop now? That's enough. All right? I'm aware. Repeat behaviour does not help. That's him in a bad mood. Very capable of biting me when he's in that mood. Oh, I don't know what her insistence is. I'm going on my shoulder today. She can't walk on shoulders and she'll disappear very shortly. And she's off.
Your trunk.
Yo, my friends, lots of good vibes videos has passed. This guy here with his bird, some lovely good vibes guy. You, my friend watching, is there any time randomly that a bird has ever approached you? Out of nowhere, you are walking, good vibes, a bird just came and stood on or landed on your shoulder or on your head. You see, myself, one of those instances, I thought I was even being attacked. You see, but it's all for good vibes. You tell me, my friend, if you see such a guy chilling with a bird, just know he's a good vibes guy. And that's what you are always talking about. Lots of good vibes video has passed. Another one about the music records. That one got me laughing. Humans sometimes can be extremely funny, my friend. You see? And they deal with things in a fantastic way. But if we all united and lived in peace, everything would be okay. You see? Let's keep on watching, my friend. More interesting and good vibes videos coming up.
Your trunk lid is super heavy to lift and slams really hard. Replace your trunk strut. They are these little numbers right here and they just get tired and leak over time. Luckily, new ones only cost like 15 bucks a piece. Now when I replace them, I like to use a prop rod like this so the trunk doesn't come down on me. You could use a piece of wood too. Now what you do is take a small flathead screwdriver, fit it right behind this little piece of metal, and then just wiggle it out and off of that ball socket. Same process on the bottom. Now to install the new one, just push it onto the ball and push it on. Now we're both locked in. Same story on this one. Bop, bop. Now for the test, one finger, nice and smooth, up, no effort required, all fixed.
Let us talk about the verses in the Bible where it says God hardened hearts versus people hardening their own hearts. Now, at first glance, it can seem a bit confusing, like as God is forcing people to rebel against Him by hardening their hearts. But you see, when we look a bit deeper, there is a powerful truth about God's love and how He respects our freedom. See, in the story of Pharaoh in Exodus, we see both situations. Early on, Pharaoh is the one hardening his heart. For example, after Moses asked him to let the Israelites go and the plagues start coming, in Exodus 8:15 it says, I quote, Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not listen, unquote. Now, Pharaoh saw God's power at work and His sovereignty, but stubbornly refused to respond. But later in Exodus 9:12, it says, I quote, God hardened Pharaoh's heart, unquote. Now what's going on here? Did God just take away Pharaoh's ability to choose by hardening Pharaoh's heart? Well, not at all. God respects our right to choose and never forces anyone to rebel. Now, He presents truth so we can see the light and repent. See, in Pharaoh's case, God continued to reveal His power and sovereignty, giving Pharaoh ample evidence and reasons to soften his heart. But you see, Pharaoh kept rejecting that truth over and over again. Eventually, God allowed Pharaoh to fully experience the consequence of his repeated decisions. The result? Well, Pharaoh couldn't hear or respond to truth anymore, naturally hardening his own heart. It's like someone keeps ignoring healthy advice. Over time, the body will reflect that stubbornness with illness. Now, God doesn't make them unhealthy, but He doesn't stop them from facing the results of their poor choices either. That's what happened with Pharaoh. God allowed him to solidify his rebellion because that's what he insisted on doing. We see his idea elsewhere too. In Romans 1:24, Paul writes, I quote, God gave them over to the desires of their heart, unquote. Now, when people continually reject God and His truth, He respects their choice and lets them have what they want, even though it breaks His heart. So what can we learn from these verses? First, we need to guard our hearts. Proverbs 4:23 says, and I quote, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it, unquote. Now, if we keep rejecting the truth, we become less sensitive to it. Over time, it becomes harder to hear or respond to God's voice. It's like building calluses on your hands. You stop feeling what you're supposed to feel. And secondly, respond to God's voice promptly. Hebrews 3:15 reminds us, and I quote, today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts. Now, if God's nudging you through Scripture, a life circumstance, or even wise advice, don't ignore it. Respond with trust. And finally, be patient with others. Sometimes people need time to process truth. Just like God gives us space to grow, we should extend grace to others and pray for their hearts to remain open to Him. Now, God never forces anyone to rebel or obey. He gives us the freedom to choose. So let us choose to keep our hearts open and be responsive to His truth. In this instance, did God harden the heart of Pharaoh? The answer is no. Pharaoh hardened his own heart by his continuous rejection of God's truth presented to him. Amen.
Last week, one of my students missed class because she was getting married. Like during class, like while class was meeting, she was getting married. And I asked her, like, why are you getting married on a Tuesday? She said, well, we're just going to the Justice of the Peace and we wanted our anniversary to be 2/25/25. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I was like, you know what? When you come back to class, we'll celebrate and I'll bake something. So do you want cookies or do you want cinnamon rolls? And so she chose cinnamon rolls. And so this week I took the class fresh, homemade, from scratch cinnamon rolls. Some students found a way to complain because that's what students do. She was very grateful. But we had these cinnamon rolls and celebrated. And then in my class yesterday, I kept feeling like I was missing something. I kept telling my students, like, I feel like there's something I forgot to do. And I realized it was because between our discussion and the PowerPoint in my previous class that I had passed out the cinnamon rolls. And that's what was making me feel like I was missing something. And so I said that to the class, and of course they got upset. I knew they would. And they're like, you haven't made us anything. I said, well, no one in here got married. One of the students raised her hand and said, you told me I shouldn't get married. I said, you are 18. She is in her 30s. That's different. So they said, okay, but if we can find a reason to celebrate, if someone in here deserves to be celebrated, you'll make us cookies. And I said, you know what? Yes, I will. And so they brainstormed for a while and they came up with an idea that I agreed with. So next Wednesday, this class will get cookies if on Monday the student who has to go to court doesn't go to jail.
This may not look like it, but this is aggressive behavior. It's incredibly subtle and a lot of people might miss it, but this dog is actually resource guarding this little chew. And her subtle behavior is a big reason why people often think that aggression comes out of nowhere. Because when subtle signs like this are ignored over and over again, dogs will very frequently decide that they need to escalate their warnings, which this dog even does several times throughout the video. So let's take a look again in slow motion at all the different signals. First thing to note is that she takes the chew, puts it down, and then immediately hovers over it and does not eat it. Notice how she is holding her nose over it and is frozen. When person backs up, she stares at them with that awkward flattened neck. She also eyes me and then lowers her head back over the resource. Notice how she double checks what the people are doing before she decides to pick it up and then puts it back down and has to stare at the people again once there is more movement. Notice again the way she's holding her head, her eyes flattened, staring intently in that awkward flattened neck. She now picks up the chew and is staring at both of the people with that very tense, tight tail wag. Her ears are pulled back, her face is very tight, and her body is very still. She's basically saying, "Are you gonna come take this?" She puts it down and then right there puts her paw on top of the chew. She's making sure it's extra secure while she's eating it. She also stays facing us so she can tell if either of us are coming close. All these signs were subtle, but they were all escalations. So to keep your dog from escalating further, it's important to see the initial signs.
It's okay to laugh when Tesla stock crashes. Elon Musk is losing billions of dollars after having his 14th child. It's funny. But the thing you got to keep in mind is that when the stock market tanks, it takes a bunch of retirement accounts with it. That means there's a lot of people who were about to retire who now can't retire. And we need these people out of the job market. A lot of people tend to think about entitlement programs as being a competition between generations, boomers versus millennials or whatever. But retirement is not just about rewarding people for work. It's about preventing stagnation. It's a traffic problem. The system has to keep moving. I mean, you got to think, it's March right now. In 3 months, there's going to be a whole new generation of high school and college students graduating, and they're all supposed to get jobs somehow. But for there to be a position for them, somebody somewhere has to either get promoted or quit. And that's just not happening. And what happens when young people can't get jobs? They start making prank videos. So we're all laughing that Elon Musk is losing billions of dollars, but pretty soon your grandmother's going to be getting pranked at the grocery store. And that's not funny.
What would happen if Earth's oxygen increased 100 times? A fan asked. If Earth's oxygen levels increased by 50 to 100 times, would humans grow as large as dinosaurs? All right, let's simulate it. First, we create a solar system and locate Earth. Let's start by increasing Earth's oxygen levels 10 times and see what happens. All vegetation on Earth has disappeared. The survival rate instantly drops from 92% to 41%. And that's just a 10x increase in oxygen. Earth has already become a dead world. What about 100 times? The survival rate plummets from 41% to 7%. At this point, nearly everything flammable on Earth would spontaneously combust. A high-oxygen environment isn't necessarily good for life. Humans would suffer from oxygen toxicity in atmospheres exceeding 50% oxygen, and at 50 to 100 times the normal level, almost all animals would die within a short period. Now, let's speed up time, 1,000 years per second, and check back in a million years to see if Earth recovers. A million years later, Earth is still a barren wasteland. The survival rate has dropped further to 5.9%, down by 1% over a million years. The Arctic ice sheet has expanded by 200%, and the Antarctic ice has grown by 150%. Looks like too much oxygen isn't a good thing. And that's what happens when Earth's oxygen increases 100 times. What should I simulate next? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to follow.
So I'm sure some of you guys probably believe stuff like this doesn't happen, but let me assure you, this is not the first time. Went to the ER, called in for patients. I have multiple patients, but this was my first one that I was going to see. And when I go to the ER, usually I stop at the nurse's station and look at the chart, kind of go over everything so I kind of know what I'm dealing with before I even start. This was a younger patient, probably I think he was in his 30s or something like that. I can see him though because I'm really close to the bay. I'm looking at him while I'm looking at the chart, so I guess he notices me watching, and he asked the nurse that's in there, like, "Hey, is that my doctor?" And she told him, yeah, that's Dr. J, you know, he's great. You'll be in good hands. And he was like, oh, no, absolutely not. I can't have any black people touching me. And I smirked because it's not the first time I've heard someone say that. It's been a couple years, but whatever. If you don't want to see me, I don't care. But she froze. She didn't know what to say. I was like, oh, don't worry. He can see whoever he wants, but I'm the only one I can see right now. So if you can't see me, peace.
There's two kind of chopstick. One's a metal and one's a wood. Personally, I like silver chopstick. This is a 35 years old. This was a special wedding gift, Mrs. Rice brought. Okay, I will show you how you hold the chopstick. There's so many different ways to hold the chopstick. Some people hold this like this way, or some people hold like this way, or basically, my favorite way to hold the chopstick is bottom chopstick goes on top of the forefinger. So right here, then go underneath thumb like that. All right, now top chopstick goes on second and third. Okay, now watch. You only move the top part. You don't move the bottom part. Never move the bottom part, only top part. That's how you hold the chopstick.
Everybody is now theorizing about the new discovery about the pyramids. We're going to do all that work just to realize what I said was right. They're not just batteries, they are body preservers. And this is how I know this. You make your own and you test it. Inside the pyramids, there are airtight rooms. The airtight rooms are made out of granite, and granite is primarily made up of quartz. The rooms are airtight so that they can pressurize the quartz. When you pressurize quartz, it releases negative ions, which then can preserve organic material. What is this? Same exact thing. This is polyester resin to mimic the organic material of limestone so that the quartz that is inside of here gets pressurized, because when the resin hardens, when it cures, it shrinks down and pressurizes the quartz that is put in this pyramid. I tested this for myself. I'm not woo-woo. I'm a follower of Christ, and I know that everybody else should follow Christ. But I tested the pyramids out to see if they do it. I hung one banana just elsewhere, and then the other half of that same banana I hung over this pyramid. 2 weeks go by. Both of them look bad on the outside, as if both of them are just like molding. But the one that was hanging over the pyramid, the insides were completely preserved. Completely. Here is the pictures. I'm going to just like let this sit here for a couple seconds. Yeah. The one that was hanging over the pyramid was completely preserved. Like nothing had ever touched it. Like it looked like the inside of a green banana. Do you guys not get it now? Those little cylinders that are under the pyramids that all those archaeologists are finding out about, those columns are probably made up of granite. Granite, because granite is made up of quartz. And those spiral things going up each cylinder under the pyramid, it is probably copper. Copper for conductivity. Quartz under the ground so it's pressurized so that they can preserve the dead bodies in the pyramids. This is like Nephilim technology. Like there is no way the Egyptians knew about this stuff. Like they had to have had some sort of outside source that is way smarter than them. Like, come look at this. This is Noah. So this is Noah's flood on the timeline. It's roughly right here. This is the Tower of Babel. The people, they didn't want to get flooded again, so they built this, and it's made up of waterproof brick, and they try to build it as tall as they possibly could, just so that God cannot wipe them out with a flood anymore. Why did God make the flood happen? Giant genetics. He was trying to preserve the human DNA. So here's the flood. This is like the rough area of when the flood happened. Then the Tower of Babel, and then look at this. Pyramids. Not all of the Nephilim genetics, the giant genetics, got wiped out from the flood. We then see the Anakim later on. This is like during Moses' time, which means that they either repopulated the earth, the giants with the fallen angels and stuff, or that some just survived the flood. Either way, the pyramids are literally right after the flood happens. Bam, bam, bam. Do you guys not get it yet? Do you guys not understand that Jesus Christ is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, meaning that there's other lords and other kings, lowercase k, lowercase l? Like, why do you think all these Greek mythology gods are just popping up around this time and then, oh, pyramids are built? Because those fallen angels, they didn't just reproduce with humans. Reproduce with, like, fish, which is where mermaids come from. Horses, that's centaurs. I sound like a crazy nut job right now. This stuff is all biblical, though. All these pagan god stuff, all these fallen angel half-breed thingies, the hierarchy is just mimicking what is already written in the Bible. Why? Because the story of the Bible rings so true to every person's heart. Satan can never make his own things. He takes what God has made and he perverts it. So those pyramids, the stuff that the archaeologists are just finding out about, it's all to preserve organic material. the organic material being bodies, for the Nephilim spirits, the Anakim spirits, to inhabit after their death. That is like a demon's dream, is just to live on this earth forever. Because one, they're alive when they're on this earth, but two, they can indulge in all of the sin that they want, as long as they can find a body to inhabit. Yes, these could very much be batteries, but why would they be powering something? Also, what would they be powering if they were batteries? Like a portal to another dimension? Maybe, I don't know. Even if they are batteries, I don't think that's going to get us anywhere. That's why I tested out for myself, because I was that curious about it. Organic material preservers for body. Pyramids are just huge tombs. Anyways, because you guys have asked so much about these pyramids, I'm selling them. Not because I want to sell them and just make money off of it, but because so many of you have asked me to start making them and selling them. Anyways, I could care less if you buy it. I just have fun making them because I think they're pretty cool. None of this stuff matters. Like, none of it matters. Worship the God that made the science, not the science itself. You know who that God is? That is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Repent, believe the Gospels. I love you guys.
Why does that guy look like that? Let's talk about inbreeding. Maybe you've heard of dominant and recessive genetic traits, but what does that actually mean? Well, I've said before that genes are like instructions for your cells, but today I'd specifically like you to imagine them as recipes. Imagine two different recipes for brownies. One says to add nuts, the other one says no nuts. No matter which one you follow, you'll still end up with a brownie, but they'll come out slightly differently from one another. Genes can also have these slight differences between them. For example, in one of the genes that makes your earlobes, one version can say attached and the other version can say free, nuts and no nuts. And these different versions of genes are called alleles. You have two copies of each one of your genes, one from your biological mother and one from your biological father. And because your mother and father are different people, they probably have different versions of a lot of their genes. So when the two copies you inherit have two different alleles, how do your cells know which recipe to follow? That's where dominance comes in. Basically, anytime there are two different alleles of a gene or versions of a recipe present, if one of those alleles is dominant, that's the one that cells will actually listen to. This means that recessive traits don't show up as often, because you need two copies of the recessive allele. But this is way more likely if both your parents also had two copies of the recessive allele. Do you see where I'm going with this? When two people are closely related to each other, it means that their genes carry a lot of the same alleles. That's why you look like your parents and your siblings. But if two people who have a lot of the same recessive traits reproduce with each other, there will be no dominant alleles to override them. So the more a family tree starts to overlap on itself, the more those recessive traits can start to pile up. And that's how you end up with babies who have webbed feet, hemophilia, and what was referred to back in the day as the Habsburg chin, named after a powerful English royal family in which everybody looked like just a little bit clapped. In trying to keep their bloodline clean, the royals accidentally tanked their entire genetic lineage. And people say they never did anything good for the world.
Whoa! Interesting. Hey, I thought that guy, that was a painting. He didn't look like that. Anyway, he looks like he was full of good vibes. Thanks for watching up to this way, my friends. It has been interesting being with you. I had to put some mark here on where I'll share with you from the Book of Wisdom, but the bunnies have already moved and the marking have lost. But the book word was from Proverbs. Proverbs 4:23. This is what it says. I've reached there manually. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Put away perversity from your mouth. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Make level paths for your feet and take only ways that are firm. Well, interesting. Good vibes soul of earth. Let's talk with this creator, my friend, that has kept us alive up to this point. Father, Lord, King of Kings, come before you through the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you for this moment that you've reached, Father. Thank you for your goodness. Dear Lord, as we wrap up this video, Father, may you do these good things, Father, to this wonderful child of yours that have been watching, Father. Uplift their souls, Father, and give them strength to deal with their lives, Father. Give them hope, Father. May your light shine in their hearts and life, Father. May you carry all their burdens, dear Lord, and help them, dear Lord, to walk according to your paths. Help us all, Father, to be at peace with one another and unite as the whole world. In your holy name, Jesus Christ, we do pray, trusting and believing. Amen. See you next time, child of God. Peace, love, good vibes, and every good thing come up your way.